You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel.
Yes. What I was working around to was that the majority of your writing on a weekly basis appears to be critiques of work produced in the last 10 years.
Well, I have written several books about the masters of perspective, composition and form.
But they, I would suggest, don't pay the bills, do they?
That may be. One is often required to perform the tune that the listener wishes to hear.
I would agree. So, with that in mind, do you not think it's a bit strange that for a man so involved in the history of art and art criticism, that over 70% of your articles have been on the subject of modern artists?
Not at all.
Oh, well, I'm not with you.
Well, there are only so many times you can write down the dates of any artist's life before the editor wants something new to read. One can hardly blame him, poor soul. I mean, we all know that Van Gogh lost an ear, but would you really want me to mention it week in, week out? Although my dislike for reviewing modern artists is now well established, it's also what I'm required to do.
To pay the bills, as I said.
Do we not all have them?
Indeed we do.
Then they must be paid for.
They must. And that brings me back to the subject I was coming round to.
And what was that?
The money side of the modern art world.
I'm an art critic, not a financial advisor.
But what you write, it is read.
Yes, one has worked hard to know one's subject. When one is writing, one must be knowledgeable to form one's opinion and to inform others.
Especially as those views carry such weight.
I suppose you're correct. The market is a fickle place. Many who propose to know their subject are only bystanders and hangers-on. The true critic has spent years studying and preparing. In essence, it's a lifetime's work, like the way of contemplation or even the priesthood. One must understand the form of art, its construction, in an attempt to truly see and understand its meaning. It's not something that all can grasp.
I am sure you are correct.
Are you able to see deeper than the majority?
I'm sorry?
Oh, everything today is so shallow, no depth. To appreciate the artistry of the old masters, one must seek to view creativity with a more critical eye. Every stroke, every twist of the brush, each moment of inspiration that has left us in awe of those that saw the world so differently, those that reached out and touched the sublime.
But the art market is filled predominantly with work that is more modern in nature.
Well, you must remember that even the giants of the arts were once also considered new and modern.
The money today seems to be becoming more
The
important.
art world has always been associated with finance. In uncertain times, investors always look for safer ways to secure their money. An artist that was considered too provincial in his lifetime, in the future might be recognized as a major talent. Collectors and galleries may then decide to acquire that artist's work with a view to the future.
You mean after the artist is dead?
Well, yes, if you wish to be so vulgar about it.
Because then the artist's work is finite. There can be no more produced.
By definition, yes. You've made that point yourself.
So, a dead artist is worth more than a live one.
It's one way of looking at it.
And keeping an artist off the market, or only bringing the work to the market occasionally, helps to maintain the commercial value of the artist's work.
It's the marketplace.
So as long as the market is not saturated with a particular artist at any given time, then the value of the artist should remain high.
Depending on external factors, of course.
Oh?
Well, as I said, investors may decide to place their money elsewhere.
I was thinking...
During economically harsh times, people frequently feel reticent about the future. Even property and land can lose their value. Gold itself has dropped recently. Only art lifts the soul when times are bad. The people will always look to that which brings inspiration. The talent of those that could turn canvas into something from the heavens, a gift from God, one might say. These have been the moments the public has lived for. The world, the market, as you have referred to it, is only an expression of desire of all men to transcend to the inspiring and inspirational. This is the contribution that art brings to any society that it touches. All are raised that see it, and all artists are equal.
But there are stars in the art world, leading lights. Those that you can be pretty certain will always draw out the enthusiasts, the connoisseurs, those with cash to spend and money to make.
All industries have them. Why do you think the world of art should be any different?
I don't.
Well, there you are.
I find it peculiar.
You find what peculiar?
We've been talking about what you refer to as the old masters.
Yes. Those are the men that have illuminated the world for us, left pictures and images that have illustrated the past and shown us...
Yes. You've said so before. What I was meaning was that I can understand, in a limited market, the draw of investors to place their money in a safe haven. Stocks and shares have a tendency to rise and fall. Prosperous times are always replaced by less prosperous times. The bubble inevitably bursts. Someone always loses the shirt on their back.
History, I feel, proves you're right.
And yet, the lessons of history are so rarely learnt.
The human condition one fears.
Maybe.
You don't believe that we are all destined to repeat the mistakes of the past?
When people repeat the same mistakes over and over, there is usually a reason.
Perhaps it's human folly.
Human folly is often put forward as an excuse. I didn't know, I didn't see it coming, no one could have guessed how this or that would turn out. The reality, as was once said, is that there is nothing new under the sun. Whatever happens today has happened before.
And people do make mistakes.
Over and over?
Of course. Don't you find?
Not from my experience.
Just because the definition of madness is repeating the same thing but hoping the result will be different, that doesn't stop people from doing exactly that. After all, we wouldn't keep having financial collapses on such a regular basis if it wasn't.
There are those that think the financial collapse was more planned than accidental.
And so the wealthy put their money into art rather than gambling it on the roulette wheel?
The rule of thirds, I believe it is called. I'm sure you know it.
Oh, yeah. Let me see. In times of financial difficulty, place your money in 1/3 gold, 1/3 in land or property, and 1/3 in art. I'm only confirming what you've just said. Invest your money wisely.
I agree. Which leads me to another point.
Is this another question about money? I thought we were meeting here today to discuss the world of art, and more importantly, my career as one of the leading art critics of these times.
Oh, but we are.
It feels that we've strayed off the subject somewhat.
It's difficult to discuss the world of art without talking about the financial side of it.
The appreciation of the aesthetic doesn't come from its commercial return. A piece of art must be viewed from its historical perspective. As you say, times change. It's the art itself that does not. The contribution that an artist makes to the world must be viewed in terms of its significance, both at the time and how it's seen today. We as an audience must try to see art in this context. Leave the purchases of the auction houses to the squalid process of the financial world.
You think the money side of it debases the subject?
There are markets in many things. Art is only a reflection of that.
I see. It's curious you say that.
Oh?
The way you referred to the art world then, as a reflection of the larger world around us.
It was only an observation. I'm hardly the first to say such a thing.
True, but I think you may be right.
I usually am.
Yes, you have said in your column.
You're an avid reader, you were saying.
Yes.
Art is, and shall remain, a mirror held up to show the world itself. To transcend us all from the humdrum to a level of reality that for many is only perceivable through works of such beauty that when seen take the breath from the viewer. We feel raised up and shown the world anew.
Last year at the Picture Frame Gallery, there was an exhibition by Peter Graham, a modern artist, presenting a number of works, including a series of installation pieces called The Modern Edifice. This included a piece with 8-foot-tall crucifixions. These crucifixions were, however, reversed. And due to the symbolic imagery of such work, a number of Christian groups protested outside of the gallery in question.
This was a major work of our time. The focus on death and the hereafter. Powerful stuff.
The installation was exhibited and due to the controversy attracted record numbers of people. The viewers were far greater than would normally have been expected for such a show.
The work went to the heart of the public's consciousness. It was exciting and different. It caught the imagination of the art establishment and the viewing public.
On each of the inverted crosses, the artist had added representations of figures that were considered to have done great social good.
Artists can't be pigeonholed into the same limited view as others. They are working to bring forth concepts and ideas that challenge the public view of the world around them. This particular work was bold in its construction, its approach, and ultimately its completion. The artist was trying to provoke a reaction, and in that respect you would have to say he was successful. It caught the popular imagination and took the art world by storm. The representations of the figures that you have described were critiqued as being amongst the most authentic ever produced within the medium. The contours of the human bodies, the ripple of their garments, the detail of the nails piercing the flesh, the expression upon the individuals' faces. It won several awards, you know.
Which gave the piece even more publicity.
It was worthy of all the notoriety it received. The public recognized work of such character that the demand to see the artist's installation was proof, as if such work needed it, of its quality and value, and that the faith that the gallery had placed in the presentation itself, it was bold and inspiring.
And the protesters outside?
Strong, powerful art has always provoked equally forceful responses and emotions.
The response was revulsion, horror, and disgust. Some people said they felt physically sick at the sight of it.
No doubt looking for publicity of their own.
Not all the reviews were kind.
The reviews from those that mattered explained it as a major work. It has set the standard for a generation.
You'd put Peter Graham in the same category as that of Picasso.
His work is exciting and diverse. The Crucifixion of Humanity was only one of a series of provocative pieces that has shaken the art world to its very foundation.
Yes, some of his other titles have reached a similar level. The Enslavement of Adam, a pictorial image of an office worker being flogged mercilessly by suited corporate bosses. The Loss of Mary, a mother and child sculpture of an old woman with baby frozen to death on a city street as shoppers burdened with debt walk on by. And most recently, The Abuse of Sarah, a pornographic short film of one young woman and an endless line of men awaiting their turn with her. Each new work has been hailed either as a brave move in an exciting direction for modern art, or rubbish, taking the artwork and its investors for a considerable amount of money.
You're saying that those who bid for such art are foolish?
No, not entirely.
Those with more money than sense? Those just gullible enough to purchase work that has no artistic merit?
Some have said things very similar to that. When you consider previous examples from the modern art world, it's not difficult to see why there are those that look and scratch their heads.
Hadrian Cavendish is one of the wealthiest art collectors on either side of the Atlantic. He doesn't follow the latest trend. He does, however, have the ability to recognize talent. He spotted Peter Graham and has nurtured and promoted his career.
And he has purchased almost 80% of all that Peter Graham has produced and subsequently brought to the market in the last 2 years.
A Peter Graham piece sold in New York last year for $7.2 million.
Only because previous pieces sold for £3 and then £4 million, and with a minimum price to start with, it wasn't much of a gamble, was it?
Such things are used in all industries. When all's said and done, the world of art is still a profession for skilled artists who are frequently able to demand and acquire the very highest prices.
Does it not seem to you that there are some dangers with all this?
People have often tried to argue that the market is overheating. Art, like any commodity, will simply find its level. One cannot judge artists for producing what collectors wish to buy. No one is forcing those who attend such auctions to open their wallets. Some purchase to invest, some for the joy and appreciation of good art.
Isn't that the point?
Exactly.
That it is not all good art.
You're putting words into my mouth.
Peter Graham's The Crucifixion of Humanity was not everyone's idea of good art.
Tastes change. Not all can grasp the depths and intricacies.
Peter Graham's depiction of Gandhi, Pope John Paul II, Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama and Mother Teresa crucified upside down was not everyone's idea of, as you say, good art. To many, it was simply a poor attempt at a low grade of shock value.
For which the public then lined up out of the door and around the corner to see it. I would be the first to admit that one man's art is often another man's bewilderment. I learned many years ago that not everyone will always understand every piece of work in the time in which it's created. Everyone knows that Van Gogh was almost totally unsuccessful during his own lifetime. Now, the world clamours for any painting of his whenever any of them are presented anywhere in the world. This is just another example of what is shown today being appreciated tomorrow.
All right, let me put it another way. You spoke about Hadrian Cavendish just now. You know him?
We've met. One does if one is part of this world.
Is he nice?
What's nice?
Is he pleasant?
He's a multi-millionaire in the art market.
Mr. Cavendish has a warehouse in the West Country in a quiet village called Barleywood. Have you ever been?
No, I haven't.
But you know of it.
It's been on television, one of the satellite channels.
It has.